Hey guys, this is Tang and George with FAF Airsoft here, and today's topic is airsofting on a budget. Although that might be misleading nowadays, let's just say, what kind of budget do you need to start airsofting? So that kind of budget that you have to come up with is really going to depend on where do you see yourself playing.
So the base requirements that you need to go play are really going to depend on what that airsoft game is going to look like. Are you going to be playing in your backyard, just doing some target practice, maybe with a couple of friends, or are you going to go visit a field where there's a lot more players and a lot more of an activity involved there? The basic requirements for doing just some backyard target practice are going to be pretty different from what you'd need to go play at a field. So the main thing you're going to need if you're just going to be trying out airsoft and seeing what it's like, and you just want to shoot an airsoft gun for the first time, I would definitely recommend starting with a pistol is a great way to try out airsoft at an inexpensive price. I would recommend going with something that is gas powered, that's CO2 or green gas. That way you have something that's semi-automatic. Another good option for some target practice would be something like a bolt-action sniper rifle. Now, if you're looking at electric rifles, those are going to be a lot more practical for an airsoft game, but they're also a lot of fun for target practice as well. They do tend to be a little bit more expensive than the sniper rifles and the pistols, however.
That's right. And on the spring rifles, they're not very expensive, but they do take some arm strength to operate. So if you're a younger player, you might have difficulty pulling that bolt back after every shot. Whereas an electric gun, you can just fire as long as you can pull the trigger.
So a couple of the reasons that you're going to want an electric gun if you plan on playing an airsoft game: electric operated rifles are very easy to work with for new players, and having the ability to fire semi-automatic and full automatic, it's a really nice feature to have.
Right, so with the electric rifles, the initial cost is a little bit higher than those other two types George mentioned, but because you're running off the battery, you basically have an infinite power supply as long as your battery's charged and in working order. The only thing you need to buy really is ammo.
The other thing you're going to need is some eye protection. Now, if you're not playing at a field, you're not necessarily going to need like the full face protection, but definitely a pair of goggles, as well as the ammunition and airsoft pistol or rifle that you want to try out.
Okay, so let's talk about what this stuff costs. Now, keep in mind, due to external factors, some of these prices are subject to change, but let's talk about the price range of all these items.
So if you're looking for a basic gas-powered pistol, something that's non-blowback, no extra bells and whistles, just a simple gas-powered pistol that's semi-automatic, you can typically find them from anywhere from about $30 to $80, depending on the type of pistol you're looking at. Once you start to get above that price range, you're going to be looking at a lot more high-end pistols that have blowback features and recoil, stuff like that, and also full metal frames on some of them. But if you're looking for just something simple, you can definitely get into the target practice game with a simple $30 to $50 airsoft pistol. So if you're looking for a budget-friendly electric rifle option, I would definitely recommend checking out one of the Sportline models. The Sportline models are typically going to be polymer bodied and definitely a lot less expensive than the Proline option, which is typically a full metal gun. The typical Sportline gun will run anywhere from about $130 up to typically about $250 or so. And then around that price point is where you'll start getting into those Proline rifles. But you can definitely do very well with a Sportline rifle at a lower price as $130. And then you're just going to need the battery, BBs, and charger to get that rifle up and running. Now for sniper rifles, you can get one for typically as inexpensive as $80, and then they work their way up from there depending on the type of sniper that it is. But you can definitely find bolt-action snipers that are under that $100 price range. Now when shopping for eye protection, that's something you're definitely going to need. It's very important to make sure you purchase only ANSI rated, impact rated airsoft glasses. That means that the lenses are not going to shatter when they're shot. A lot of ski goggles and stuff like that will shatter, so just be really careful when you pick that eye protection that you know that it has that ANSI impact rating. You can typically get a basic set of eye protection for about $15, and then there are nicer options available that start to work their way up to about $50 to $60. Now for ammunition, if you're planning on doing some target practice in your garage or something like that, you can get non-biodegradable airsoft BBs. You can get a bottle of the lightest weight of ammo, 0.20 biodegradable BBs, for typically about $12 or so.
All right, so if you are in the category of people that are looking to play airsoft as a sport in an airsoft field, whether it's you hosting a game in your backyard with your buddies or going to a sanctioned field, the requirements are a little bit steeper for what your budget is, because you do need to account for some safety gear. Let's talk about the kind of guns you want to use first of all. Primarily, at least for us, we recommend, for most players who don't have a play style in mind yet, look at an electric gun first, for the same reasons George mentioned, where it's practical, costs less to operate, and in this case, it offers you more flexibility out in the field as far as what you can do. If you run a sniper or specialized kind of gun in the field, you might be restricted at certain ranges. If you have in mind running a pistol as a primary, for example, you are going to be easily outclassed and outranged at a large outdoor field by an AEG. So for guns, I would look at AEGs first, and the prices you mentioned are perfectly reasonable to start with. If you're looking for something that's more substantial in how it feels, how it's built, perhaps look into a Proline gun. Now, when you're in an environment where people are shooting back at you as opposed to shooting just at a target, the equipment required is going to be a little bit more extensive. So first of all, you're still going to want the Z87 ANSI rated protection for your eyes, as George said, but now you're going to need something that's full seal, as in some sort of goggles that offers no chance for a BB to get through and hit your eyes. Shooting glasses, while they are strong enough to take a hit, they do not offer the same protection all around as a pair of goggles would. And then followed by that would be some sort of face protection if it's required of your field. I would recommend it anyway. So typically a mesh mask, which is around like, $20 to $25, let's say. Or you could alternately go to a full face mask, such as a paintball mask or a dye mask. The next piece of gear you might want or need is some sort of way to transport your gun to and from the airsoft field. So I'd recommend a gun bag, gun sock, that kind of thing. Just something to make it inconspicuous as you're traveling so that you don't alert people around you, because these do look like real things. So be very mindful about how you transport that in the public. So BBs, George already mentioned, as far as price goes, you're going to be facing the same cost. If you're playing at an indoor field, you're going to be using non-biodegradable. Maybe you want to use tracers, that's purely optional. And if you're playing outdoors, most will require biodegradable BBs. Now for batteries, as George said, it's a pretty inexpensive power supply. When you're playing out in the field though, you're shooting much more than you're shooting than in the backyard. So you may need more than one battery. I typically carry 2. So put that in your budget if you really want to stay out there and stay in the fight longer. Nothing worse than running out of juice in the middle of a fight. And your typical batteries could be anywhere from $20 to $30. So times 2 and you got yourself enough to carry you through most of the day.
Now, the last piece of gear you're going to need is a charger. Now, most airsoft guns are not going to include the battery and charger. However, there are a few that do. With those included chargers, a lot of times they are not an auto stop option. That means that when you plug them into the wall, they're just going to keep charging that battery. And what you're going to need is an auto stop charger. That will keep your battery protected so that you do not overcharge the battery. And those chargers will typically run about $20 to $25.
That's right. And then with those chargers, they also save you a lot of time when you're prepping for game day the next day, because rather than sitting there and watching for your charger to finish, I mean, we should still do that, but at least with the auto stop charger, you'll get an indication, whereas a dumb charger, as we call it, won't tell you anything, and you'll have to do some math, which is not fun.
Lastly, if you're a new airsoft player, I just want to take a second to remind you guys to stay safe out there when you're playing airsoft. Make sure that if you are going to play a game of airsoft, always wear those goggles. I really recommend having that lower face protection as well. And just make sure that you play responsibly, and that if you are playing a backyard game, that you treat it the same way that you'd have safety rules at a field. Make sure that if someone in your group is not wearing eye protection, that everyone is keeping those airsoft guns pointed in a safe direction and with the magazines out, and always treat them like they are loaded with a BB in them and ready to fire.
Exactly. So that's the biggest thing is, and airsoft is very inexpensive to get into, but a lot of things can happen if you aren't very careful. So we're here to preach responsibility and be safe with our airsoft guns, because that does affect, where you can play, how the public perceives the sport. So we want to be sure that you're responsible at home as we are on the field, and be extra careful out there when we're handling these toy guns out in public. All right, guys, so with that in mind, thanks for watching again. I'm Tang with FAF Airsoft.
And I'm George, and thanks for watching.